fall of the Jedi was brutal. Obi-Wan Kenobi watched the collapse of the Jedi Order, the execution of Order 66, and the rise of the Galactic Empire with an unbearable weight on his shoulders. He himself was forced to destroy Anakin Skywalker, his pupil and brother, now transformed into Darth Vader. Heartbroken, he took refuge on Tatooine after ensuring the safety of Padmé's newborn male child. Tatooine was a desolate planet where the constant heat and silence of the desert matched his pain. Taking on the role of a hermit, he began to live as Ben Kenobi, watching little Luke Skywalker grow up from afar. He was all that remained of the Jedi hope, and Obi-Wan bore the burden of protecting it. In the early years, Ben kept his distance. He watched Luke running across the sands with imaginary friends and fighting with pieces of iron as if they were lightsabers. Obi-Wan smiled in silence, hidden among the rocks and dunes. Whenever a threat came to the Lars farm, from Tusken bandits or violent merchants, it was he who intervened in the shadows, leaving invisible trails of protection. On one occasion, he rescued Luke from a gorge, leaving him unconscious and safe at home before dawn. He never wanted to be noticed, only to ensure that the boy survived. Over time, Ben began to appear casually at the local market. He was an eccentric figure, unshaven, tired-eyed, but with a strange magnetism. Luke, curious, always watched him from afar. "Old Ben Kenobi," the neighbors laughed. Once, Luke fell off a band, injuring his arm. Ben appeared and, with a subtle gesture and calm words, stopped the bleeding. "You're lucky, kid," he said, smiling. Luke, surprised, asked, "You're a wizard?" Ben just winked and walked away with the desert wind. Time brought back memories. Luke remembered someone with sad eyes and wise words. Someone who, for some reason, made him miss something he had never known. Obi-Wan, on the other hand, felt a weight that grew each year. He didn't want to see Luke take the same path as Anakin. The thought of seeing the boy face his own father in a duel of destiny was unbearable. "I know I thought the boy would be our new hope, but I can't let him inherit a war he didn't choose," he thought. And so, amidst the cold nights of Tatooine, Obi-Wan immersed himself in long meditations in search of a new path. For weeks, he isolated himself in the caves of the Junland region, refusing food and limiting himself to breathing and the Force. His visions became more intense. Corridors of light, portals spinning in the void, ancient voices calling his name. "The cycle must be broken," one of them said. He sensed that something greater awaited him, something that could rewrite destiny. Obi-Wan went back to training as he had done in the days of the Order. Saber, focus, balance. But now there was more. He studied, wrote, meditated, as if he were preparing for something impossible. For every 1,000 push-ups, he meditated for another 100 hours. It wasn't just instinct. It was the Force. It whispered, it pushed, it called. Obi-Wan began to dream of places he had never seen. Ancient planets, forgotten ruins, fragments of lost holocrons. One early morning, he decided, he could no longer stay on Tatooine. Luke is safe, for now. He prepared his old transport and discreetly set off. He began a solitary journey across the galaxy, without a map, without direction, relying only on the beats of the Force within him. His search took him to strange worlds. On Ossus, he found books that mentioned dimensions beyond reality. In Jeddah, he heard monks whispering about paths between time. In Lothal, he felt a call like never before, a familiar but impossible echo. "You are near," the Force whispered. On every planet, Obi-Wan left footprints of light and hope, healing, saving, learning. But he knew his real mission had yet to begin. It was as if fate was testing him. Then, after years of silence and searching, the old Jedi found what he was looking for. At the heart of a hidden temple, between broken columns and forgotten inscriptions, there was a portal, a circle of energy, pulsing with the very essence of the Force. It was the world between worlds, a place outside of time, where past, present, and future intertwined. Obi-Wan knelt before the portal. "If this is a mistake, let the Force judge me," He took a step forward, and reality shattered like glass around him. Inside that limbo, Obi-Wan saw everything. The lost battles, the fallen Jedi, the moments that shaped the fall of the galaxy. But he also saw possibilities. The birth of Anakin, Palpatine's manipulation, the rise of the Sith. What if I can stop all this, he thought. What if I not only protect Luke, but ensure that he never has to fight this war? He felt fear but also hope. For the first time since Mustafar, his heart was alight with true purpose. He was no longer just a guardian of the future. Obi-Wan Kenobi was about to become a hunter of the past. A Jedi against time, ready to confront every Sith Lord before their shadows engulfed the galaxy. And as the echoing portals took him to distant eras, he whispered to himself, "I am one with the Force. The Force is with me." The galaxy would never know what he was about to do, but its impact would echo through the ages. Inside the world between worlds, Obi-Wan was invaded by infinite possibilities. Each portal pulsed with different scenes. Battles, dialogues, losses. He found himself in versions of the past that he didn't live, and in futures that never materialized. But among all these realities, one pattern remained. The Sith were always the source of the pain. Sidious, Dooku, Maul, they all left deep scars not just on him, but on the entire galaxy. With a clear mind and a determined heart, Obi-Wan understood what he had to do. He would hunt down each of these specters before they plunged the galaxy into darkness. The portal showed Obi-Wan only these options, as if the world between worlds itself were filtering the possibilities and discarding others. He took a deep breath in front of a portal where Qui-Gon fell with Maul's saber through his body. This is where it starts. Another showed Dooku ordering the death of civilians on Raxus. Further on, Sidious whispered words to Anakin that would break him forever. Obi-Wan knelt down, touching the contours of the first portal. "I can't undo all the pain, but maybe I can stop it from starting." He closed his eyes. The image of Qui-Gon fell over him like a storm of memories. His master, his compass, his first grief. It was time to rewrite history. To prevent his master from dying, he couldn't go straight to Palpatine. The vortex sent him straight to Naboo, down a narrow, bright corridor. He was there again, but this time hidden in the shadows. He heard the screams, the ringing of sabers. His younger self and Qui-Gon were facing Darth Maul in what seemed like the beginning of the end. "I can still make it," he muttered. He hid his face with his hood, concealing his aged beard and tired eyes. He leapt into the illuminated arena with an agile movement, as if he had never stopped being a Jedi in his prime. Maul spun his double saber, confused by his new opponent. "Who are you?" asked one of the Jedi, but Obi-Wan didn't answer. He fought with precision and restrained fury, anticipating the Sith's every move. He remembered every step of that fatal dance, and this time he wouldn't let the end be the same. Qui-Gon, surprised, stepped back when he saw the masked warrior fighting beside him. "You came from the shadows, but you shine like the light," murmured the master. The young Obi-Wan also hesitated for a moment, not recognizing the hooded warrior who seemed to be fighting for him. Maul tried to separate the group, but failed. The third warrior was implacable, as if he already knew the Zobrik's every move, deception, or leap. Obi-Wan advanced with ferocity, pushing Maul backwards, until the Sith duelist stumbled, off balance. "Now!" shouted both Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon didn't hesitate. He launched a direct blow to Maul's chest, defeating him. The Sith's body fell into the abyss, with no chance to hurt, no chance to take revenge, no chance to return. The cycle was broken. The first crack in the Sith domain had been made. Panting, Qui-Gon approached the stranger. "You saved our lives, and perhaps something much bigger." Obi-Wan merely nodded. The Jedi Master tried to ask his name, but he replied, "Just a friend of the Force. Someone long forgotten on a desert planet." The other Obi-Wan, still young, tried to look at his eyes through the hood, but to no avail. Silently, the hermit turned and walked away through the temple passages, before time claimed him back. Young Obi-Wan, watching from afar, felt a familiar chill. "Who was that?" he asked. Qui-Gon only smiled. "Someone who believes. Like us." Now alone somewhere far from where the battle against the first Sith had taken place, Obi-Wan Kenobi stood still for a moment, feeling the weight of the change. The pain of losing Qui-Gon had dissipated, now replaced by a strange, deep calm. Over the years, he had noticed that fate had been altered, discreetly, but in an essential way. Qui-Gon would live. Maul had been prevented, and at that moment, Obi-Wan understood even more that his mission had been transformed. It wasn't just about protecting Luke Skywalker or waiting for a new hero to emerge. It was bigger, much bigger. Each Sith has left a wound in this galaxy, and each of them must be stopped before the cycle of destruction begins. After helping to beat the first, he would be sure to be able to help fight the next. The hunt was just beginning, but the world between worlds was out of reach. The portal couldn't be reopened, he was trapped in that time, and there he would have to live. That's when he looked up at the skies of that new present, where Maul no longer threatened the peace and Qui-Gon still guided the paths of the Jedi. He thought of Dooku, his fall, and the beginning of Sidious's dark plan. He felt anger but also compassion. "You could have been more, Dooku, but you chose the shadows." Obi-Wan understood that it wasn't enough to defeat the Sith when they were already lost. It was necessary to stop them from falling. But to do that, he would have to wait until they revealed themselves to be dark. Time was now his only path. With the portal gone, he continued to live in that new timeline. He became a silent warrior, discreet but attentive. He knew that the moment to act would come again, and that every step from then on would require patience. "Thank you, Qui-Gon, for reminding me of what is right," he murmured one night, watching the stars. The Force seemed to respond with a serene breath, like a reminder that he was not alone. The saber rested at his side. He no longer sought glory or redemption. He sought justice, and enough time to make it flourish. The years passed. Obi-Wan waited. He watched. He prepared himself. He knew that, one by one, the Sith would reveal themselves. And when they did, he would be there. Not as a mythical savior, but as a man with a silent promise. "No Sith will go untouched. Not while I have the strength to stop it." Time passed as stars passed through hyperspace. Swiftly, silently, and inevitably. Somewhere hidden away on Tatooine, Ben, the old hermit with the sad eyes and sharp mind, watched the flows of the Force. His mission was to wait, and he did so with an almost mystical patience. He didn't intervene, it wasn't time yet. Every little step of destiny had to unfold, and he knew that the right moment would come. The young Obi-Wan he had been was on a different path now, shaped by the choices that Qui-Gon Jinn, miraculously alive, had made in deciding to train the boy Anakin Skywalker for himself. The knighthood test for young Obi-Wan was very different from what the other Jedi had gone through. It didn't just involve combat or diplomacy, it was a spiritual test. Qui-Gon, Yoda, and Mace Windu, respecting the ancient Jedi rituals, took the young version of Obi-Wan to the planet Ilum, where the young man had to face visions of himself torn between two paths. One, arrogance veiled by wisdom. The other, humility shaped by pain. It was there that Obi-Wan built a new lightsaber, with Kyber crystal attuned to the new phase of his soul. When he returned, they declared him master in front of the rest of the council, not for his deeds, but for his inner balance. Meanwhile, Ben, the Obi-Wan of the future, used his own accumulated wisdom to keep a discreet eye on events in the galaxy. Wearing simple clothes and a false identity, he infiltrated the shadows of Coruscant, gathering information, listening to rumors about a new Sith Lord on the move, the same one who had corrupted Dooku. For years, he had waited, knowing that his direct intervention could cause a paradox. His objective was clear: to join Anakin and Qui-Gon at the right time to eliminate the Sith threat and avoid the horrors of the future he had known. Qui-Gon, for his part, guided Anakin with a sensitivity that few Jedi possessed. He didn't ignore the boy's emotions, but taught him to understand them. From an early age, Anakin learned that the Force was not only about control but also about listening. Qui-Gon took him to meditate with humble children, to build bonds with nature and understand suffering. He taught him about the living will of the Force, the one that whispers through trees, people, and even the wind. Thus, Anakin grew up more balanced, less impulsive, and more attuned to what really mattered. When rumors began that Count Dooku was distancing himself from the Jedi Order, Qui-Gon was the first to suspect. There was darkness in his former master's gaze. On a mission to the planet Obadiah, they found clues to secret agreements between Dooku and Separatist factions. Anakin, still young, took part in the investigations, and his ability to detect lies through the Force was essential. Where there is an apprentice, there is always a master, Qui-Gon told him one night. It was clear Dooku was not acting alone. There was an even denser shadow behind him. It was on the planet Sullust that the truth came out. Dooku appeared before Qui-Gon and Anakin as Darth Tyrannus, wielding his curved lightsaber, wrapped in a dark cloak. The battle that followed was brutal. Anakin fought with the fervor of one who protects his master, and Qui-Gon, though older, showed the same elegance and firmness of his golden days. But just when everything seemed to be going in the dark, a hooded figure emerged from the smoking stones. Ben, the old man, launched himself into combat, his blue saber gleaming like a star that refuses to go out. The clash of the three Jedi against Dooku was legendary. Ben, despite his age, fought with precise movements, as if each blow were his last. His body felt the weight of years, but the Force still guided him. Dooku recognized something in the old warrior, a familiar presence that made him hesitate. Anakin used this moment to wound the Count, but not fatally. Dooku escaped, wounded and furious, vowing revenge. After the battle, Qui-Gon approached Ben. "You fight like someone who has faced this enemy before, many times. Who are you really?" Ben looked away, avoiding the question. "Just someone who's seen too much, and hopes you won't have to see the same." Qui-Gon didn't insist, but something bothered him. The way Ben knew Anakin's every move, his every gesture, there was a mystery there, a deep one, and one that perhaps involved something greater than either of them. He knew that the Force didn't bring coincidences, only paths that couldn't yet be understood. He decided to take his doubts to someone who had long guided the Order with serene wisdom, Yoda. In the Jedi Temple, where Yoda occasionally retired to meditate, Qui-Gon explained everything. He talked about the strange old man, his way of speaking, his silent pain, and the way he seemed to protect Anakin with a zeal greater than that of a stranger. Yoda listened in silence, his eyes squinting as if he sensed something deeper stirring in the webs of the Force. "Perhaps the future of the past has broken through, he murmured. "Or maybe it's just beginning." Yoda advised Qui-Gon not to force answers. "The truth comes to light when the Force wills it," he said. "But care must be taken. If old and new paths cross, light and shadow are confused." XXXXXXXXX back at the temple, Qui-Gon began to observe Ben more closely, not as a stranger, but as someone who was part of a story that had yet to be told. And in Ben's aging eyes, he sometimes saw the same stubborn glint he had known in the young Padawan, called Obi-Wan Kenobi. Years had passed and the evening mist was falling over Coruscant when Anakin Skywalker entered the Chancellor's office alone. His heart was pounding like the engines of a ship on the verge of explosion. Palpatine, sitting calmly, spoke in his usual sweet voice, but this time he wore no mask. He revealed himself as Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord behind the war, and offered Anakin what he most feared losing: the power to save those he loved. The young Jedi, confused and torn, left the room with the Sith's words echoing in his mind like thunder. In the shadows of the Jedi Temple, Ben was waiting for him, older than anyone could have imagined. His white hair and haggard body hid the mind of a warrior who had seen the worst possible future. Seeing Anakin pale and upset, Ben knew. "You spoke to him, didn't you?" Anakin tried to deny it, but he collapsed. He told them everything. Ben approached him calmly, as if each step cost a decade. "The Force has placed this choice in your hands. But courage, don't run away, Anakin." The young Skywalker hesitated. The thought of betraying the Council or being tried as a traitor terrified him. but he feared losing Padme much more than losing his mother. But Ben laid an extremely wrinkled hand on his shoulder. If you don't stand up to Palpatine now, tomorrow will become an endless shadow. With one last look full of doubt, Anakin returned to his office. Palpatine, surprised to see him return so quickly, stood up. Have you come to make the right choice, young man? Anakin stared in silence for a moment, and then drew his lightsaber. Your manipulation ends here. The fight began brutally. Palpatine revealed a dark power that Anakin had never seen before. Force lightning flashed from his hands and the atmosphere shook. Anakin resisted with difficulty, each blow taking him further away from victory. Then the door opened and Ben entered. He wielded no saber, but his gaze was steely. Masterfully using the Force, he deflected attacks, redirected energy and opened gaps for Anakin to attack. Even in his old age, he was like a ghost of wisdom in the midst of chaos. Ben used ancient and forgotten techniques, guiding the flow of the Force as if it were an extension of his soul. At a critical moment, he channeled vital energy to strengthen Anakin, enveloping him in an aura of resistance. Palpatine roared, "You're no ordinary Jedi, old man." Ben only replied, "I'm no longer young enough to doubt myself." Despite this, fatigue was overtaking him. His body was no longer keeping up with his spirit, and a fall left him vulnerable. Just when all seemed lost, the door burst open with a bang. Qui-Gon Jinn emerged, older, gray-haired, but still as imposing as the rocky planet they once called home. He had suspected Palpatine for years. His steps had been cautious, his investigations discreet. But now, faced with the truth revealed, he wielded his saber and joined the battle with the serene fury of the great masters. Anakin and Qui-Gon, side by side, fought like master and apprentice, with the synchronicity of those who understand the Force in essence. The duel was titanic. Palpatine was strong, but he didn't expect an attack from 3 generations of wisdom and resistance. Ben, even on the ground, channeled the Force one last time, blocking a deadly beam aimed at Qui-Gon. Anakin, guided by this opening, advanced with a surgical strike. Qui-Gon finished the move with Jedi precision. Darth Sidious' final cry echoed through the room like thunder being swallowed up by the abyss. The empire that was never born died there. In the silence that followed, Anakin fell to his knees. There was no glory in it, only relief. Ben was breathing hard, his eyes watery. Qui-Gon knelt beside him, touching his shoulder. "Thank you for your help, old warrior and my Padawan?" Ben smiled, almost out of strength. Someone who needed reassurance, that hope was still possible. Yoda, upon hearing of the events, reflected deeply. Time, it plays tricks, but true hearts always are. The Jedi Council was restructured. Anakin, free from Sith influence, became a knight guided by wisdom and balance. Qui-Gon, now recognized as a visionary master, took center stage. And Ben, the old Obi-Wan who had come from a dark future, disappeared silently, like the last star of a night that had finally dawned. The death of Darth Sidious marked the beginning of a new era for the galaxy. With his fall, the cogs of corruption within the Senate began to be exposed one by one. Politicians previously manipulated by the dark side now answered for their actions before a new, more active and vigilant Jedi Council. The Republic was reorganized under the leadership of humbler representatives, many of whom had been saved directly by the intervention of the Jedi during the years of conflict. There was no longer any room for camouflaged authoritarianism. Peace, still fragile, began to flourish. The Empire, which in the distant future would have been built on fear and submission, never existed. Palpatine's plans, his secret archives, clones, manipulations and spies scattered throughout the galaxy, were uncovered thanks to the investigations initiated by Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan. With this information revealed, the Jedi began to act more proactively, breaking with the old policy of distancing themselves. They began to protect their people not only with sabers, but with actions and diplomacy. Without their master and without known heirs, the Sith disappeared like a forgotten nightmare. The The dark holocrons were locked away under intense surveillance in the Jedi Temple. A group of Force Guardians, made up of Jedi and neutral scholars, was created to prevent new dark paths from being trodden again. With the Sith line of succession broken, and the survivors extinguished or regenerated into the light, for the first time in centuries, the dark side seemed to have truly silenced. The Jedi Council, once rigid and bound by dogma, now saw the Force with more sensitivity. It was Qui-Gon who brought the vision of balance, reminding the Masters that the Force is not a property of the Jedi, but a thread that connects everything. In this new order, feelings were no longer ignored but understood. Anakin, now a respected master, spoke about fear and love with honesty, teaching his apprentices to recognize their emotions without losing themselves in them. It was Anakin who, at a meeting of the new council, told the truth about Ben, the old Jedi who had appeared in the darkest moments and helped defeat Sidious. When everyone learned that this man was the same Obi-Wan Kenobi, but from an alternative future, silence reigned. Yoda, in particular, meditated on this for a long time. At the end, he said, "Into time he plunged, but what he did, he saved many, yes." Ben, Obi-Wan from the future, explained his purpose in a private conversation with Qui-Gon and Yoda. He told of the fate of Luke, Anakin's son, who in his time grew up as the last hope in a galaxy dominated by the Empire. He explained how he trained the boy in secret and how he lost everything in the end. He traveled back in time not to rewrite history out of ego, but out of compassion, to prevent the same mistakes from happening again. If I could save one soul, just one, it would be worth the risk. That's why he never revealed his identity to the remaining Jedi. Ben knew that his presence could alter the natural course of the Force too much. Fate needed to be guided lightly, as if it were holding water in its hands. He remained distant, helping in the shadows, appearing only at moments when the line between failure and hope became blurred. There was no place for him in those days. No longer as a knight, no longer as a warrior, only as a guardian of what might have been. With peace restored, Ben retired to a silent planet in the far reaches of the Outer Rim. There, where the stars danced leisurely and time seemed to slow down, he lived out his last years. He meditated by crystal-clear lakes and talked to the voices of the Force. He felt the echo of old companions, Satine, young Anakin, Ahsoka, even a redeemed Darth who was never born. There, in complete solitude, he found the serenity that had always eluded him. Qui-Gon visited him only once, and the two of them sat in silence under a sky full of moons. They didn't talk about the past or the future, only the Force, as if it were an old friend they had met again. As they left, Qui-Gon turned and said, "It's still very strange to visit two versions of the same person. But you taught us all, even if you never demanded anything in return." Ben smiled, weak but at peace. "The Force wanted it that way. I just went with the flow." And then he stood there watching the stars with watery eyes. The next morning, Ben didn't wake up. Sitting under a tree, his body still seemed to be in meditation. The breeze blew gently. Birds sang among the branches. His body gradually fell apart, becoming light, becoming part of the Force. Only a sigh remained in the air. One last breath from someone who had seen the darkness and chosen to fight for a new dawn.